guys, and welcome back to Community Stories. Today we have an amazing guest who I'm really excited to interview. He is a former foster, and he has such a true heart and a true passion for really changing the outcomes for within the foster system. So today I'm going to interview Scott Hampton.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. So tell me your story. How did the foster care journey start for you?
Foster care journey started when I was born. I was put up for adoption, and for some odd reason, they didn't want a kid with fetal alcohol syndrome, I guess you could say. Multiple issues, obviously medically, that they didn't want to deal with or respond to, I guess you could say. But yeah, that's how it started for me.
So it wasn't ambulatory. What kind of disabilities do you have with fetal alcohol syndrome?
None, I guess you could say. I mean, whether that was the label that, Children's Services wanted to put on me, or, whether that was an issue that was easily overcome as a baby. I mean, I don't know the scientifics behind the whole FAS thing, but
yeah,
it was just out of my hands at that point, I guess.
So you were in multiple foster homes then, or?
Yeah, I was in multiple foster homes until the age of 5. There were many foster homes I enjoyed being in, and then there was many more that I didn't like being in. Different morals, different values, and I guess as I grew up, there were different things that I believed was right. There were multiple things that I believed was wrong. I saw the good and the bad when it comes to foster homes, I guess you could say. The good, the bad, the ugly, the locks on the fridges, and some things you're allowed to do, some things you're not allowed to do. Like go play in the mud. I was a boy and I liked playing in the mud, but some foster homes I wasn't allowed, even though they had a mud room, I wasn't allowed to get the mud room dirty, So, a cookie jar, some families I was allowed to get in the cookie jar anytime I wanted, and then sometimes I had to ask. But then there were times, with families that I had to earn one cookie. So it was like, a whole bunch of confusion up until the age of 5, when I met my mom for the first time, my biological mother. She had an abusive husband, and he put me in the ICU. Multiple abuse stories, multiple abuse stories.
So when you say you met your mom, you mean you went home to live with your mom at one point?
Yeah, after the reunification process. Here in Ohio, they have a reunification process. So even though you were put in the ICU, your mom can still get you back. There wasn't anything permanent as far as removal. I mean, we're talking about back in the early 80s. Foster care was still right for investigation as far as the conduct. They weren't right. They clear on how to remove a child, when to remove a child. There weren't guidelines like there are today when it came to that. But after the age of 5, my mom had married a guy, and he basically put me in the ICU, got removed, and then I was put in more foster homes. But at this point, I was actually placed in RTC's, residential treatment centers, which aren't really meant for the growth and development of children. It's based around, early stages of incarceration, even
as early as 5. So what was RTC like? I don't even former fosters, we have this thing that where we all have this common thing about the way that we grew up, but within that everything's different. So I don't know what an RTC is.
A residential treatment center is a place where it's a correctional facility, basically, for those in foster care. They put you there, and there's a lot of over prescribing of drugs and isolation. When I think about an RTC, it's a staff member wearing all white, he's got, or she's got, needles strapped to them. And if you act out, you're getting shot with a dose and a strap to a bed.
How long were you there?
On and off, basically, my whole life. They would put me there for temporary care.
So
Because they couldn't find a foster parent that was qualified as a special need foster parent to, place me. They said, well, we'll just put you in this, residential treatment center until we can find you a foster home.
So what was it? Were you extremely hard to handle? Were you violent? Were you sexually aggressive?
I was never sexually aggressive. However, there were youth that were sexually aggressive in that RTC. I don't think that me acting out was aggressive. Like, I never committed a crime as a youth. I never threatened as a youth. Basically, I was just put there as temporary foster care. I did act out. I did set fires. I did. I did. I guess you could say I never really wanted to hurt anybody. But at the end of the day, I felt that, nobody cared, and all they just did was sign a piece of paper for me. So, and I knew that if I acted out, my social worker would be there at 6 o'clock in the morning to take me to a new home where maybe I might be able to get in a cookie jar, or might be able to, go play in the mud, someone who actually cared about the way that I felt, about the way that I wanted to be, who I wanted to be, basically.
So a lot of the acting out was just trying to find the right fit for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was a test. It was a test to see how far I could push you for you to say, all right, I like these people. I tested them and tested them, and they didn't care. They didn't budge, so they must really love me. And it's crazy for, a 5-year-old or even a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old to have that mindset, but that's reality. Foster kids go through so much trauma and so many. I put foster youth and former foster youth above a realm of I'm lost for words right now. Total respect because of their knowledge.
You have to be very strong to be able to withstand it and to keep going, right?
Absolutely. Family morals and family values, they might not understand, but they get what a family's supposed to be like. And that family's supposed to be someone that they've never even met in the past. Does that make sense to you?
It kind of does. I mean, for me, I definitely am a person that the relationships that I have with my friends have very, very strong walls, strong boundaries around who I let into that inner circle, because there's so much. I mean, I don't really get upset about people letting me down. I just move on. That's just my thing. I don't take it. People are like, how can you just cross someone off of your list? Like,
right. And that's how it is. It's a sad reality. So after 5, I went into more, after I was placed in ICU, I went into more foster homes.
How many were you in?
Over 20. But I was adopted at the age of 11. So after the reunification process, when I was 7 years old, I reunified with my mom, Children's Services, or CPS. They allowed that reunification process to happen, but she lied. She said that she wasn't with my abuser. She said that she wasn't on drugs, so forth and so on. But a week later, here he comes. Come to find out that at that point, she had had 2 other kids by this man, and obviously those kids were his world, and here I come back into the picture. Horrible, put me right back in the ICU. Like I touched everything in that house. I was tied up, left in an attic, nothing to eat, nothing to drink, and beat horribly.
Was your mom a observer, or was she a participant?
She was incoherent. She was so bad. She was so bad on drugs, that he was just able to have, the run of the mill of the house, and he didn't want me there, and it was obvious. So I finally went to the school, and I told him, this person's beating me, and they called CPS, Child Protective Services. They finally removed me for the final time, after the second ICU placement. Here I go back in more RTCs, but now I'm on Ritalin, now I'm on Adderall, now I'm on these drugs. Come to find out, later on in life, like I didn't even need those drugs. Were speeding me up. They were causing me to act out more. So all they did was just up the dosage, up the dosage, up the doses. And finally, I'm running around with, like a chicken with his head cut off, and they wondered what was wrong with me. So we'll get into that here in a second.
I just wondered, like at the residential treatment centers, did they have age-appropriate activities? Did they have therapy? Did they have things to?
No, it was school, and then you're just put in around, like, it's like a prison. It's like prison. You have a day room, you have recess, you're allowed to go outside, but then there's kids wanting there's kids wanting to hit you over the head with a brick because you have a big wheel nice on your nerves. You know what I mean? Like they're sexual active kids that are threatening little girls. Most of the staff, they encourage, fights between the residents and people that just went to school there. And if you look back on the history of where I'm actually talking about, they actually got shut down of what they were doing when I was in school there, when I was residing there. They just now got investigated. So it went uninvestigated, that whole, and just think Children's Services was sending people there day after 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 day.
So you never had pasta, you never had anybody to talk about what was going on?
Oh, no.
No kind of mental.
No. I was in the wrong all the time. I acted out and I needed to be punished, and you got your room was a concrete slab with a mat about that thick, and they fed you off of a metal tray, just like they do in prison. And
we will get into that, talking about
yeah. Right.